Dust swam in late light when she reached the split-rail fence, hat shadow hiding her eyes. "I ain't worth much," she said, voice rough from road and wind. "But I can clean your barn." The cowboy weighed the miles on her boots, the torn hem, the steady way she didn't beg. "Name?" he asked. "Tala," she said, like a drumbeat. He pushed the gate with a boot heel. "Barn's that way. Water pump by the trough. If you're hungry, there's beans." She nodded once, no thank you wasted, and crossed to the long shadow of the barn. The air inside smelled of hay, horses, and the sort of quiet that listens back. He watched from the door. She moved sure, rope-coiling hands, a rhythm learned somewhere that respected animals and time. Swallows stitched arcs in the rafters. Tala spoke soft to the mare in the last stall, not in words he knew, but in a kindness he could read. The broom found corners Dust never thought would see daylight. She straightened tack, mended a torn feed sack, set a broken latch with a nail she found under the beam. By dark, the barn had the dignity of clean shirts on Sunday. She stood, breathing slow, and met his look. "Beans," he said, tipping his head to the house. She followed, steps careful on the porch boards that remembered old storms. Inside, the stove ticked down a memory of heat. He ladled bowls, set bread, poured water. She ate neat, like a person who knows what hunger does to pride. He kept questions behind his teeth, let silence put up its own chair. After a while, "You headed somewhere?" She shook her head. "Away from where I was. Toward where I ain't yet." He respected that map. "There's work in the morning," he said. "Stay the night." Dawn came pale and honest. Tala was already at the pump, sleeves rolled, hair braided tight. She carried the morning like a task list carved in bone. Feed, brush, muck, mend. The cowboy, Cole, found himself keeping her pace, surprised to be pulled by another's rhythm. Neighbors came with the sun, news strapped to saddles, a rodeo downriver, a missing calf, a storm jawing the far ridge. Tala stepped aside when men talked loud, but her eyes mapped the land through their words, setting pins and threads the way scouts do. At noon, a kid from the next ranch limped in with a split palm. Tala washed the dirt gentle as rain, wrapped clean cloth, and hummed a tune he'd never heard. The boy's jaw unclenched. "Thanks, ma'am," he muttered. "Tala," she corrected, soft, like teaching a foal to nose a bucket. Cole pretended not to notice how his ranch took a deep breath with her there. Hinges squeaked less. The mare didn't crib. The rooster crowed at a decent hour. Even the wind spent itself politely against the fences. He found himself smiling at nothing, which he distrusted and liked. She slept in the loft, near the hay, by choice. "Wood smells kinder than walls," she said. Nights held coyotes and stars big as tin plates. Cole kept a lamp low in the kitchen and a spare coffee on the back of the stove, just in case the dark asked for company. On the third day, rain teased the horizon. Tala checked the eaves, set barrels under drips, lifted the grain sacks onto pallets. "Storms write letters," she said. "Best to read them before the ink runs." Cole nodded, unsure if he understood the words or the wisdom behind them. She taught his gray gelding a trick, touching a nose to her palm when she whistled 2 notes. Cole laughed outright, a sound the rafters tested like a new beam. "You're a horse witch," he said. She lifted a brow. "No witch, just a person who listens when they speak with hooves." One evening she carried a bundle of old wire and broken metal. "Junk," Cole grunted. "Stories," Tala answered. She twisted and braided until the pile became a wind charm that sang soft on the barn door, turning drafts into music. The horses slept deeper. News rode in hard, a cattle buyer with more swagger than coin, offering thin prices and fat promises. Cole's jaw set. Tala listened, then said, "Let him weigh the herd at your pens, not his," and added a quiet plan involving chalk marks and a gate he never used. The buyer left honest. Cole poured coffee by lamplight and asked the question he'd kept folded. "You got kin nearby?" Tala's eyes slid to the window where night stacked itself. "Kin," she said, measuring the word. "There was a camp once, east of the Granite Hills. People have ways of becoming wind." He heard what she hadn't said and let it be. Respect is sometimes the shape of silence. Tala moved her cup an inch and said, almost smiling, "Your hinges squeak again." He grinned. "They like to complain." "So do men," she said, then stood to find the oil can. Days became threads. Tala wove them into rope. She fixed the well's stubborn handle, taught the pup not to harry chickens, and traded beans for flour with a widow down the road by kneading bread the way stories knead sorrow. The ranch stood a little straighter under her hands. Cole noticed small things. She never turned her back on the barn at dusk. She placed a sprig of sage above the door. She counted lightning without moving her lips. He asked none of it. He offered space, tools, and a horse when she needed to ride the ridge and listen. On the 12th day, 3 riders grazed the fence with eyes that climbed buildings. Cole stepped out slow. Tala stood inside the barn shadow, a brush in her hand like it could be a baton or a weapon. The riders wanted strays, or a reason to be mean, or both. They left with neither. After, Cole said, "You can stay as long as you want. I don't keep people." Tala looked at him for a long beat. "You don't," she agreed. "But sometimes a place keeps a person. We'll see what the place decides." The wind chime on the door whispered its vote. A letter of sorts arrived, the kind carried in a mouth and set down like a coin. Old Samuel from the trading post said a woman had been asking after a girl who knew songs for cuts and storms, a girl named Tala. She'd missed the trail by 3 days and a hard rain. Tala's face went still, not afraid, but listening harder than usual. "What kind of woman?" Cole asked. Samuel shrugged. Strong, quiet, eyes like the line between seasons. Wore beadwork that meant something. Tala nodded, a decision sliding into place like a well-cut join. She saddled the gray at first light. "I aim to ride to the post and wait a day or 2, she said. Cole checked cinch and stirrups, then paused. "Need company?" She shook her head. "Road's a thought I need to hear alone." He tipped his hat. "I'll keep the coffee stubborn." The trail ran through wheat stubble, across a creek that thought about being a river, and under a sky that never learned to be small. Tala rode like a person who doesn't lean on luck. At the post, she tied the gray in shade and sat with Samuel, trading silence and tea. Near sundown, 2 shadows crossed the dust. Not the woman. Men with the sloppy confidence of folks who think a saddle is a throne. They asked after a girl with a braid and a walk like a hunter. Samuel's eyes cut to Tala. She shook a fraction. He lied like a saint. When the men drifted on, Samuel exhaled. "You're stirring a pot with old bones in it." Tala nodded. Sometimes old bones need a good stirring. She slept in the back room, knife near, dreams like thunder that doesn't decide whether to stay or leave. Morning brought the woman. She moved like a hill that knows where it belongs. "Tala," she said, voice river deep. Tala stood, spine straight. They touched foreheads, an old marking of time and weather and breath. "Aunt," Tala answered. "I am here." They spoke in a language Cole didn't own, though he caught the shape of it in his bones when he arrived with a sack of oats and the excuse of needing nails. The aunt's eyes weighed him without debt or threat. "You kept her safe," those eyes said. "You didn't cage her," they added. Aloud, the aunt said, "There are men who look for her not to love her, but to use what she knows. They carry a debt from a winter when one of ours refused them something cruel. They pretend they hunt horses. They hunt pride." Tala's jaw set. Samuel spat in the dirt. Cole offered the ranch as a place to wait and think. The aunt tilted her head. "Places have tempers," she said. "What's the temper of yours?" Cole smiled without teeth. "Stubborn, fair, not fond of cowards." She nodded. "That will do." They rode out together. Back at the ranch, Tala hung a second charm on the barn. Bone, feather, a ring of forged scrap. "For seeing liars before they see us," she said. The aunt walked the fence line, touching posts like old friends. Cole brewed coffee that tasted better when people he trusted drank it. At twilight, the riders came, the same pair and a third who wore his cruelty like a clean shirt. The aunt stepped forward, bow unstrung but hand on the string. Tala stood left of the door. Cole set himself center. "Evening," he said. "You boys lost? Or just unlucky?" They talked circles, tried to buy what wasn't for sale, tried to take what wouldn't be given. Cole kept his words few and his eyes on hands. The aunt named a boundary like a line burned into the earth. Tala named another. The men found their courage thin and rode away with loud laughter that didn't stick. Night gathered slow. Coyotes held court. The aunt told the rest of it. A traveling. Show had wanted Tala's songs, not for healing but for spectacle, and when refused, they'd soured, turned rumors into bait for worse men. "They think she's a thing to be owned," the aunt said. "They will learn otherwise." Cole cleaned his rifle, not because he planned to shoot, but because clean things work right. Tala checked knots, doors, the listening places. The aunt sat with the wind and asked it to carry warnings and blessings in equal measure. The wind, being wind, obliged. When dawn smudged the east, hoofbeats spoke approach, not the three. A small caravan, 2 families, tired but upright, asking water and a patch of shade. Cole gave both. Tala handed out bread. The aunt traded news for news. Safety grows by being practiced. Midday heat crushed breath to the ground. The 3 returned, faces set to mean. They cut the outer fence and laughed. Cole looked at Tala. Tala looked at the aunt. The aunt nodded once. Each moved to a place the others already knew. Cole met the leader halfway. "You keep chewing the wrong fence," he said. "Soon you'll find wire in your teeth." The man sneered and reached for his gun because men like him mistake movement for power. Cole had no time to be clever. He had time to be steady. The aunt's arrow kissed the dirt near the man's boot, whispering the shape of the next arrow's path if wisdom failed. Tala's voice arrived low and calm. "Leave," she said. "This place doesn't want you." "Neither does the day." The leader looked at the math and didn't like the answer. They left, but not in a straight line. Cole exhaled a breath he'd folded too small. Tala touched the wind charm. "They'll be back crooked," she said. "Crooked men come back in curves," the aunt agreed. "Then we set the land to teach them what straight feels like." They walked the fence until the sun apologized for its temper. Days of quiet work followed. Cole fixed the cut, posted new wire. Tala trained the pup to alert on strangers without barking at birds. The aunt stitched bead into a leather strip and tied it to the gate latch. "So the gate remembers who opens it," she said, and smiled the small smile of old craft. On a silver morning, fog low and grass wet, the crooked return came. 2 slipped in at the creek bend. 1 bellied under the hedge. They moved like the idea of snakes. The pup stilled, then looked to Tala. She pointed, and the pup became a shout with teeth. Cole stepped from the barn as if to fetch a tool. The aunt walked from the house like breakfast needed sage. Tala stood by the hitching post and hummed a tune that made the gray lift his head. Every piece looked like ordinary life until it needed to become something else. The first man met the aunt's eyes and decided to aim at someone easier. He turned and found Cole there, not big as some men, but anchored. The second discovered a gate where no gate should be and lost his balance into a trough. The third learned that a horse can move faster than a lie. No shot fired. No blood spilled. Men baptized in cold water and embarrassment seldom preach long. They left with trousers heavy and spirits lighter than they planned. The aunt chuckled once. Tala exhaled that held note and let the tune go back to being a breeze. Word works faster than wheels. By next market day, Talk had the 3 hunting work 2 counties over. The showman who'd set Rot in motion sold his wagon cheap and rode north without a banner. The space around the ranch widened, like a shirt let out at the seams. Cole leaned on the corral and said, honest, "When you came, you said you weren't worth much." "That was a lie the road told your mouth." Tala squinted at the line where sky trims earth. "Worth ain't coins," she said. "It's whether a place breathes easier with you in it." The aunt nodded approval. Harvest leaned in. The barn swelled with hay, the bins with grain. Tala stacked order into corners. Cole taught her the stubbornness of the baler. She taught him the patience of letting a knot teach your hands its shape. Work argued, then shook hands. A storm poured itself across the hills, mean as a memory that overstays. The roof held where Tala had set new shingles. The creek rose to the lip of its name and paused, reconsidering. They lit lamps, told stories shaped to fit young ears, even if no children sat listening. After the storm, a rainbow stretched tight as a new string. "That's a bow," the aunt said. "Colors are the feathers," Cole laughed. "Who's it aimed at?" Tala grinned. "Any fool who needs reminding the sky can hunt beauty." They stood silent until color relaxed back into air. Cole fixed a hinge without being asked and realized, a fraction late, that Tala had changed the way he carried his minute to minute. He didn't fill silence with worry. He didn't measure days by what went wrong. The barn still needed him, but it no longer begged. He told the aunt he'd grown used to someone else's footsteps on the porch. The aunt stirred coffee and said, "Getting used to what is good is the skill of the wise." He considered that like a man considers rain in June. Surprised, grateful, wondering what it will grow. Tala found a stray girl at the creek. Chin set to stubborn, eyes set to hungry. She was not young, but not yet her own weather. "I can clean your barn," the girl said, rehearsing an old line. Tala smiled, heard herself in the echo, and said, "You can eat first." They named the new one Mina. She knew the fast way to sweep wrong and the slow way to sweep right. She learned the horse whistle in a day and the fence song in 3. The ranch widened again, that shirt seam stretching to include another set of ribs. Cole worried nights that he was gathering strays like a man gathers debt. The aunt eased him. "Strays only stay where they stop feeling stray," she said. "That's not debt. That's direction." He slept better, and the coyotes argued with the moon on someone else's schedule. Autumn sharpened edges, put a crispness in breath. They canned peaches, smoked meat, stitched tears and old coats into the shape of a story you wear. Tala hung chilies like red laughter. Mina chased leaves like coins she could keep. A letter with ink arrived this time from the widow down the road. She needed help with fence and calves and breach of good manners. Cole and Tala rode out. Mina stayed with the aunt and learned tea that tastes like rain reaching rock. At the widow's, a bull considered foolishness, then attempted it. Tala's rope wrote a sentence that ended that paragraph. Cole set a post while the bull reconsidered literature. The widow laughed until she wiped her eyes. "Worth much," she declared. "Worth plenty." On the ride back, Tala grew quiet. The granite hills wore long shadows. "You kept me without keeping me," she said at last. "Not many know how." Cole breathed once, twice. "I didn't know I knew," he said. "Maybe I just watched what the place decided." She smiled sideways. Winter came honest, cold, signing its name on every bucket. The barn steamed like a horse that outpaced weather. They bedded stalls deep, salted paths, and counted stars that look sharper when the air snaps. The aunt told a story about snow teaching the ground to listen. Cole carved a tiny horse from juniper for Mina. Tala fitted the wind charm with a new ring that sang in north wind. The aunt wove a small belt for the gray with beads that read, "To the eye that knows, walk safe, carry well." The ranch learned to wear gifts without bragging. On a night of fox prints and stiff moon, a rider came slow, hat tipped like regret. It was one of the 3, thinner in pride and meat. "I'm sorry," he said, voice like gravel that wants to be soil again. "I got work in me if you got fence." Cole looked at Tala. Tala looked at the aunt. The aunt said, "Let the fence decide." The man set posts straight all morning. No complaint. Hands bleeding into the kind of truth you can respect. They fed him stew, then handed him a bedroll and a spot by the lee of the barn. He slept like someone who'd met a new map. By spring, the ranch had a shape you could lean on. Mina grew into a whistle as good as Tala's. The gray learned to pretend laziness when Mina tried to bridle him, then relented with a snort and a nod. Cole learned to laugh at trouble as if it were a colt trying to buck. Tala walked the ridge at first light and met the aunt there, both facing a sky that kept its promises in its own time. "You leaving?" the aunt asked, not sad, not surprised. Tala breathed. "Not leaving. Riding a loop, bringing it back." The aunt squeezed her shoulder. She told Cole over coffee. He looked into the cup like it might hold maps. "You know the gate," he said. "It knows you," she replied and touched the bead latch. Mina pretended not to hear and said, "Bring back stories," as if that had been the plan all along. Cole tightened the cinch on the gray. Tala tied a small pouch at the saddle horn, sage, cedar, a little bell that barely rang. "For remembering not to hurry past good things," she said. He nodded. For coming back when the road looks too long, he answered. She rode out under a sky generous with blue. Fences stood easy. The barn breathed slow. The wind charm hummed in a key that said the day was listening. Cole watched until the dust thinned to the idea of dust, then went to mend something that didn't need mending just to keep his hands honest. At the ridge, Tala looked back. The ranch sat like a sentence that had found its right words. She turned forward and let the land name her pace. The road didn't feel like escape anymore. It felt like the loop she'd promised, a circle a person rides when worth is not in doubt. Days without her stretched like quiet thread. Cole, Mina, and the aunt kept the pattern. The reformed fence cutter, Tom now not a story about a mistake, built a chicken coop square and proud. Mina learned to shoe a horse, hammering rhythm into iron and day. When Tala returned, spring had written green cursive along the creek. She swung down, eyes bright, dust talking on her boots. "Did the place behave?" she asked. "It argued," Cole said. We argued back, then laughed. Mina showed a whistle that called two birds. The aunt nodded at the circle completed. Throat and of a town that sold noise by the yard. Cole told of hens with opinions and fences that forgave weather. Tom told of choosing straight lines. Under Stee that night, they ate stew that tasted like corners turned and miles kept. Tala told of a canyon that hid water in its R's. The aunt spoke soft. "The road will ask you to explain yourself. Don't live your answer." Tala lay back in the hay and listened to the barn dream. The wind charm said yes, yes, yes in a voice made of wire and feather and second chances. Morning framed the final truth clean. When Tala had said she wasn't worth much, Cole had kept her not knowing he was keeping a way of carrying the day that made every board and beam stand taller. Worth had been waiting here, patient as wood. All any of them had done was listen and stay. They woke to a sky that remembered their names and a ranch that remembered each hand by the work it loved. Cole poured coffee. Tala set a broom by the door like a flag planted soft. Mina whistled two notes. The gray nickered. The wind charm sang. The day pleased got on with itself.